Hello there, and welcome to the Great Comeback. I am your host, Holly McClain, and I'm coming to you live on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, the #1 talk network out there. I'm a life coach and counselor, and I help people come back from big shifts and upsets. So I want you to think breakups, divorce, career changes, teen struggles. So if it's a life transition that you're going through, together you and I can master plan your comeback. On today's episode, we are talking with attorney Anthony Diaz, the Peacemaker. Now, on this show, we dig into supportive ways to navigate your comeback from life's twists and turns. And one of those biggest twists can be divorce. So today we're talking about specifically how to come back from divorce in a peaceful way where you actually make strides to support your healing. And you actually come back healthier in body, mind, and spirit. And this is really important when it comes to setting up the next chapter in your life. So you might be wondering, how in the world can someone go through a divorce peacefully and have that actually begin the healing process for them in the face of divorce? Well, we have Anthony here to talk all about it. My special guest today, Anthony Diaz, is a collaborative family law attorney, certified mediator, coach, author, and international speaker. He is known in the industry as the Peacemaker. He guides families through the divorce process by reducing conflict, which ushers them toward a more peaceful and amicable outcome, thus allowing them to move forward with their lives. So those who work with Anthony are those who want their divorce done differently, with dignity and without court. Anthony believes that how one moves through divorce is how they move into their next chapter. Anthony's mission is to set you up for the life that you deserve and desire beyond your wildest dreams. Anthony, welcome to the Great Comeback.
Great to be here, Holly. I'm so happy to join you today.
So I have the first big question for you, Anthony. And that question is, will you first share a little bit more deeply who you are and why you do this sacred work that you do?
Sure. So that's a good start-off question. So, I didn't always consider myself a peacemaker. I was a family law attorney. I was a mediator. And as most family law attorneys, we do a lot of cases in court. And it wasn't until I went through my own divorce a number of years ago that really opened my eyes to, how difficult divorce can be, being a party to a divorce. So I didn't really take it seriously because I thought I can just hire another attorney. They can handle it. I'm an attorney. I know what's going on. And it wound up being a horrific experience. And an example of that was we were in mediation, and the mediator, a very good mediator, decided it was best for us to be in separate rooms with our attorneys. And I mean, it was that much conflict. And at the end of the case, when it was over and I was looking back and just being introspective about it, I was going through my own healing, and I realized that imagine how difficult it is for people who don't have any legal background. It was hard enough for me, and I'm an attorney, and most people going through a divorce aren't an attorney. So that really opened my eyes on that. And also, I lost an opportunity to be able to start that healing through the divorce. And if I would have been able to work with an attorney that specializes in peaceful divorce, that would have helped me start my journey and moving through the divorce during the divorce. So it was a defining moment for me. And then I decided that it was important for me to help those going through a divorce and to help them to understand it doesn't have to be horrific. It may not be easy, but it doesn't have to be hard. and what can we do during this process that we can start the healing and not wait until the divorce is over, and start to do some work on ourselves during that process. So it's been a passion of mine, and it's been just really rewarding to be able to work with people. And I'm so grateful to have that opportunity every day.
Yeah, and Anthony, it's interesting because um, when you're going through it, and I've been through it myself, and I support clients through theirs, and something is going on in the brain when you've got all of these floods of emotions and things like that. It's really hard to get settled in your mind and handle what they call the business of divorce. And I think that's where it gets super tricky and sticky, because you're trying to do what you need to do to take care of things, but then your emotions are getting in the way and you're getting flooded and all of the things. And it becomes incredibly overwhelming. And then of course you don't step out there with your best self, because you're overwhelmed, and you're looking at the past and things that you've struggled with and what you went through, and then you're looking at your future, and there's all of this uncertainty and all the things. So I guess my question is, like, in theory, absolutely, healing and supporting yourself and nurturing yourself as you go along in the process would be phenomenal, because then you're able to actually use your life experience as your lab, right? Where when you're feeling those emotions and you're learning how to manage them and all the things, so that you can like kick off your next chapter. But my question is, as you're navigating all of this craziness and you're not showing your best self, are there tools or specific things that you do to help support someone to kind of get back to center and kind of get back to that peaceful place so that they can have that peaceful divorce process?
Sure. So let's look at this from a couple of different ways. So, like you said, divorce is really a stressful time, and it's the end of a marriage. So it's like a death. So you have that grieving process that's going along, and for all of us that have had a loss, and most of us have in our life, you can't rush the grieving process. It's got steps, and it's going to take as long as it needs to. But I think the first thing is to be able to work with people that can support you on this journey. So you're going through a divorce, so working with a divorce attorney that's aligned with you wanting to heal and be able to get support during this process. Not all attorneys are trained to do that, so definitely looking for someone who has that experience and background. So when a client hires me, and they see that I align with that, one of the first things that I start a conversation is, how do you want this process to go? What path? Because you have a lot of different options. You can go to court, or if you want to stay out of court, there's 5 or 6 different ways. So we go over ways that if they want it to be peaceful, and they want to um, not have a War of the Roses type divorce, I help them understand, here are some ways that is going to be much peaceful and much more amicable. So a lot of times, just that conversation, people can start to breathe, because like, oh, I don't have to be in court, I don't have to fight, and all that. So we already start off with an understanding that, well, if you're looking to have a more peaceful divorce, I can help you. And here are the ways that we can do that. So starting that conversation, now people are breathing a little bit more. And once we decide on a process, um, we're all complicated. And when we have emotions going on, it really, our wires get crossed, and it's hard for us to make a decision. So what we want to do is put ourselves, and for me, my clients, in a situation where they can breathe and think properly. Because when you go through a divorce, there are decisions you have to make, and you have to have a clear head. So when folks know that it's not going to be a War of the Roses divorce, and they have options outside of divorce, is when they relax, the anxiety goes down. And when we start the process, we start to talk about what your life looks like when the divorce is over. Let's start to look at that, because that's going to be important during the divorce. If you're looking to travel the world, and all you want to do is live day to day, well, it might not be as important to have a house, because you're not going to want to have to take care of it. So that's important to know, if that's what your goal is. If you want to make sure you're set up for retirement, and you want to be able to move on with your life and feel secure financially, well, knowing about that now is helpful. So healing through the divorce process is really starting to look at what life's going to look like after the divorce, and using that information to help you during the divorce. So there's like a few things going on. You have the actual divorce process, and now you're starting to look at and explore and to feel what life looks like, and not having to wait until the end of the divorce.
I love that for a couple different reasons, because you're setting an expectation, right? So I should say, first, you're setting an expectation of, okay, this is what it could look like, or this is what it's going to look like based upon what you're wanting and what we're working with here. So it squashes some of that uncertainty, because it's the uncertainty that gets us. Once you get uncertain and then you mix some fear in there, all of a sudden, poof, we have anxiety, right? And so then it creates all this heightened emotional stuff that can get in the way. But I love it for that reason. And then the other piece too, asking the way that you ask your clients, okay, what do you want your next chapter to look like? Because sometimes you feel like you can't put one foot in front of the other. There's so much fear. When you drop them into that creative side of their brain, like, oh my gosh, like, yes, this is a fresh chapter. And there are a few things that I can incorporate, though they might not have the full-blown picture mapped out yet based upon what's going on. You kind of get them into that creative brain, which squashes the left brain that's creating all of this fear from your ancient side of your brain and your amygdala and all the things. So it kind of gets them in that space. And then, of course, there they are visualizing. So they have some sort of a light at the end of the tunnel that they can hang on to as they're moving through, to kind of recenter them as they get off track, or the fears kick in, or the old brain comes in and stirs everything up again.
Yeah.
I think super
Well, and you bring up a good point about fears and anxieties, because those are going to come up. It's a matter of one, getting folks prepared that that's going to be part of the process. It's going to be up and down, and that's okay. But the real key is, once folks can know what the type of process that they're going through, and and that's why I encourage them. Again, it's their choice, but I encourage them, if they want the process to be easier and less conflict, keeping it out of court is going to be important. And here are the ways to go do that. Once they understand that it's going to be out of court, it's not going to be a big fight like my friends had, it's going to be a divorce that's going to be done differently, that really brings the anxiety level down. And that creative process that you mentioned is a lot easier to access, because they don't have the fear and anxiety kind of getting in the way, and to just allow them that space to imagine. I love conversations that start off with imagine if, and really do a visualization. I have some clients that are in that space and they do meditation, and you can really appeal to ways, well, let's do a meditation, or why don't you do a meditation at home and look at life after divorce. So starting that, so allow me to do the legal work and allow me to advocate for you. Use this time. You don't have to worry. You don't have to be in fear. Everything is going to be okay. But it really would be beneficial to use this time on yourself. And what introspection can you do during this time to start to look at that next chapter? Look at, maybe it's a different path, maybe it's a totally different journey, but being confident that the divorce process is going to be easier than going to court really allows people to tap into that space.
I love that. I love that. We have to take a break, but when we come back, Anthony, will you share with listeners who are not privy to the other ways of getting a divorce other than going to court? Because sometimes we think, oh my gosh, I have to draft the paperwork myself, or I have to go to court and fight it out and duke it out. But there are many ways in between that you actually participate in as well. But just to give them some framework when we come back.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll take a quick commercial break. Don't anybody go anywhere, and we'll see you in a few. We're back. That was a quick one. Okay, so we left off, Anthony, you were just going to give us a general framework of other options other than doing a divorce yourself on paper or going to court and duking it out.
Absolutely. So those, what you mentioned, are the extremes. So going to court, fighting it out, and duking it out, that's kind of the War of the Roses approach. And certainly, I'm not an advocate of that. The other side is, being able to prepare the documents and file them in court and go through that, on your own. So let me start there, and then we can work ourselves through the other options. Certainly, a way to go through the divorce process is not using an attorney at all and doing it yourself. And in some situations, it may be the appropriate thing to do where there's no children, it's a short-term marriage, there was never any assets or any debts, and if finances are an issue, that may be the best way to go. You don't really have any exposure about missing anything, for the most part, but how do you know when you should really do it yourself or to go and get an attorney? So I would always just have a consultation with an attorney to go over the options. And many times I've advised people, you know what, you don't really need an attorney. It's just easy for you to go to court, fill out the paperwork. There really isn't anything to miss or to screw up. The other option you have is for mediation. You can go and hire a mediator, for you and your spouse. You don't need an attorney. Many mediators, like myself, are an attorney, but you don't have to be an attorney to be a mediator. There are a lot of good mediators out there, that may be a mental health professional or a finance professional that have a good skill set. But when you hire a mediator, uh, that's a good option. Mediator doesn't represent either of you. We'll go over all the issues that you need to resolve, and if you and your spouse are one that you can work together, even though you are not going to be married anymore, that might be a good choice. And at the end of the mediation, the mediator many times can prepare the documents for you, give them to you when they're all prepared, and you and your spouse can go to court and file them on your own, feeling comfortable that you had a professional help you in that process. It's fairly inexpensive. It's certainly less expensive than if each of you hired an attorney. The outcome is known because you have a mediation and have an agreement at the end, so you don't have to worry about ongoing legal fees. It's fairly quick. You may only need one or two sessions with a mediator, and the whole process can be done, maybe as little as 30 days. So now, if the issue is a little bit more complicated, and one of you would like to have an attorney represent you, the next out of court option is what's called a settlement attorney. And I do many of these cases where both spouses don't want to hire an attorney for each of them. So there's one attorney that represents one spouse. The other spouse is negotiating and part of what we have to have as a final agreement. And I interact with that spouse. And then at the end of the process, that other spouse will have a consultation with another attorney to see if this agreement is fair, if there's anything that's missed. So, you have a process where an attorney is involved. You only have one. The process is pretty straightforward, because the other spouse is, I'm going to agree on something fair. It's less expensive than two attorneys, and you're staying out of court. So that's another good option. And the last option, and there's a lot of iterations of this, but I want to keep the main ones that I think folks can benefit from, is collaborative divorce. And that's very common in a lot of the larger states. California, Texas, Florida is becoming more popular, and both spouses agree to stay out of court, that they're going to settle this without going to court. Each retains their own collaboratively trained attorney. And the reason why that's important is, and I'm collaboratively trained, is to make sure the attorney has a mindset that we're not in court, we're out of court, and we're here for our clients. And we're all working together as a team to come up with an outcome that's good for the family. So as an example, I might represent the wife, but I'm just as interested in the husband's goals and what, the outcome he wants to achieve, because then now my client, who's the wife, can better understand what his needs are and what he's going to need, as an agreement. So it's very collaborative. We also have on our team a couple of neutrals, and these are folks that don't represent either of the parties. They're there, unbiased, but their work is important. One, we have a financial person, and that individual handles all of the financial goals and all of the discussions around finances. There can be a CPA or an accountant, and that's their expertise. So they're brought in. So the attorneys who don't have that background now have a neutral member that can help with those decisions. We usually have a facilitator, and that person many times is a mental health person, and they keep things moving. They make sure if there's any glitches or hiccups, or there's some uncomfortable moments that come up, which happen. You're going through a divorce, and we're all being vulnerable, but they're skilled and trained in that area to be able to nip that in the bud. And especially if there are children, mental health folks are very adept at creating parenting plans. So now you have an expert that's going to be able to take care of the parenting plan, much more skilled than an attorney. You have an expert in finances that are going to help with the financial outcome much better than an attorney. So you have a team that's all there to support the couple. Again, you're staying out of court. It's a very supportive outcome. It's probably the more costly of mediation and a settlement attorney, but many cases need a little bit more support. You need the financial person. You need the mental health facilitator. And people get confused when they hear, well, I don't need therapy. I don't need a counselor. Well, their role isn't as a therapist, as a counselor, but they're going to use their therapy and counseling skills and their skill set to be able to help when conflicts come up. So collaborative divorce is one of my favorite ways to help clients through the divorce process, because it's the best of all worlds. You avoid going to court. You have experts in the team that you don't have to hire individually. Those experts, the cost of those are shared among the couple. You have trained professionals that their goal is to help these parents and couple to have a peaceful outcome. So there are many cases that really benefit by going through this collaborative process. I'm a big proponent of it, and although there's a cost to it, I like to look at it as there are certain things that are priceless. Peace of mind, having a peaceful outcome, having your children experience their parents going through a divorce and not have a lot of conflict, and having their parents model conflict resolution skills. You can't put a price on that, because now you'll have your children grow up and they can handle conflict, personal and relationship conflict, a lot easier. So, I would highly encourage folks that are looking at divorce options to really look at collaborative divorce, because it checks off a lot of boxes that are really good for moving through your divorce peacefully.
And I love that we have these structures outside of just going to court and fighting it out. I know when I went through my divorce, I wasn't aware of all the different ways to do things and what would be best. And so I think, knowledge is power, knowing that you have these options available to you and working through them. And I think absolutely, like you said, when it comes to children and having them see how we recover, how we can make this family shift or this family change without the entire world falling apart, is priceless. Because oftentimes we do think, and they had actually talked about this when I was at a meeting for our professional organization that we're both a part of at NADP. Mm-hmm. We had a big meeting on Tuesday, and we watched a film called Split by Ellen mm-hmm. Bruno. It was actually mm-hmm. part 2, the sequel. And she was sharing with us, her and her business partner were basically saying, divorce isn't just this one-off life experience and then we put it behind us and we move forward. It becomes part of the fabric of our life, which mm-hmm. was her exact words. And it's so true how we navigate. And like you were saying, your whole point in what you're sharing with us today is how you're getting through your divorce is setting you up for the fabric of your life moving forward. Because, some people might say, so I put my armor on and I go duke it out for a year or however long it takes, and then I'll deal with my emotions and deal with my stuff later. No, because how you're going through and actually processing this divorce, you can use that as an environment for you to learn more about yourself, practice the skills on, moving forward and healing and all of the things. And, that's basically what you're sharing with us here, that
Yeah.
is best.
Yeah. And that shift, I mean, I can't tell you how many copies of that original movie I bought. It was in the DVD back in the DVD days, and to give out to my clients, as parents. And you bring up a good point about, how we look at divorce really depends on, um, you know, uh, how we're looking at ourselves. And, I like to look at it as, uh, we have a choice. We can either let divorce def- define us, define us, or we can define divorce.
Oh,
And if we're proactive and we're like, you know what, I'm not going to let this divorce decide and define who I am. And when you can be proactive with choosing the divorce outcome and working with someone who can help you move through those stages, you can define divorce, and then you can define the rest of your life. But taking charge and knowing that you have the skills and you're capable of doing this even through this emotionally exhausting time, that to have that support and people to work with that will help you move through your divorce. And that's a powerful place to come from.
Anthony, that's the gold. And we're gonna end this episode with that golden nugget that divorce doesn't have to define you. You can actually define how you navigate through this process and how you come out the other side, and it's going to affect your life moving forward. Beautiful, beautifully said. And I appreciate you, Anthony, laying out the structure and the framework and sharing this knowledge with us. You're an attorney, you know the drill, you know all the pieces of the puzzle, and it's very confusing when you're out there. You're trying to figure out, I don't know anything about divorce or the process or what do I do or how do I do it. So we appreciate your expertise and your wisdom. Will you share with us how listeners can get in touch with you who are interested in connecting and working with you?
Sure. Well, they can contact me by phone at 407-212-7807. They can go on my law firm website, anthonydiazlaw.com. And I also have a website a little bit more on divorce, moving through the divorce process, and that's anthonyjdiaz.com. Also, if you're on that site, I have 3 ebooks there. So you have access to either any of the 3, and one of them I think would be great for your listeners, Divorce with Dignity. And it's a great read on working through the divorce process with dignity, and what tools and ways to be able to do that. So you can contact me in any of those, and also if you want to set an appointment, there are places for you to do that on my websites.
Wow. Okay, so we're getting information and guidance from an attorney about having a peaceful divorce. So I just want everybody to kind of let that settle in. That doesn't happen. Anthony, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you being my special guest on The Great Comeback today. And I'd also like to thank our listeners for joining us in the conversation. If you are interested in learning more about coaching with me, visit hollymcclaincoaching.com. And of course, one final thank you to Cece, my amazing producer who works her magic on the back end to make this show possible. Join me again next time. Have a great rest of your week and be well.